10 years ago, my husband, Billy Dawes, convinced me to undergo a hysterectomy so we could embrace a child-free life together. I sacrificed my ability to have children for him and never regretted it until the day he arrived home with adopted twins, asking me to raise them as my own. I agreed. From that moment, I became their mother in every meaningful way. I was there through late-night fevers, broken bones, report cards, and nightmares. My love for them was fierce. Now they've grown up. One was accepted into Princeton, the other into Yale. I swelled with pride. My chest felt like it might burst. At their college send-off party, Billy handed me a document. "It's time to transfer everything to the kids," he said. "Let's ensure they have a solid start." I didn't even read it, picked up a pen without a second thought. Before I could sign, my mother grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with panic. "Honey," she whispered, "do you even know where these kids came from? You're giving them everything. Can't you keep something for yourself?" I smiled. "It's okay, Mom. I trust my judgment. Nothing bad will happen," I said softly. She began to cry, dropping to her knees in front of me. "Please, Crystal, don't do this." Then my father stormed in. One look at the document and my mother's tears, and he erupted. He slapped me across the face. "You're a disgrace to the old Fert name," he yelled. "Even then," I signed. Billy grinned from ear to ear. And right there, in front of everyone, he walked across the room and put his arm around another woman. She was young, refined, with sharp eyes and a smug smile. "Hey," she tossed. A divorce agreement in my face like it was a party favor. "Thanks for looking after Billy and the kids all these years," she said. "But it's time for you to leave. It's time for our family to be whole again." I stared at her calmly. "Okay," I said, though inside I was crumbling. That woman, Denise Bowl, was one of my employees, smart, ambitious, manipulative. It turned out she wasn't just playing games at work. She was playing house with my husband. She was Billy's childhood sweetheart, supposedly long gone before I entered the picture. But I guess old flames truly are hard to extinguish. The party buzzed with shocked whispers. Poor Crystal. She just gave everything to those kids, and now this. Atmosphere shifted from celebration to scandal in seconds. My mother clutched my arm, tears streaming, trembling. "Crystal, this is exactly what we warned you about," she cried. "He's always been after our money. He never loved you. And those kids, you don't even know where they came from." She wouldn't listen. My father had stormed off earlier, but now he returned, face flushed with rage. "How could I have raised such a foolish daughter? Why would you give up everything for a man? You've already sacrificed your career, your ability to bear children, your assets. Crystal, you are a disgrace to the Oldford name." Surrounded by murmurs and stares, I looked down at the divorce papers. No one noticed the faint, almost amused smile forming on my lips. Billy spoke in that false, gentle tone I'd grown to despise. "You can't blame me, Crystal. I'm just a man. You had your uterus removed. You can't have children anymore. What choice did I have?" My mother couldn't bear it. She stepped forward, eyes blazing, finger trembling. "You," she shouted. "Have you forgotten where you came from? You were nothing. You had no money. Couldn't even afford college. If Crystal's father hadn't paid your mother's hospital bills, she wouldn't have survived. We treated you like family. And this is how you repay us?" Billy gave a cold laugh. "Why bring up the past? It has nothing to do with this." Then he turned to me. "So, Crystal, are you just going to stand there? Sign it? It's not like it'll change anything." "The estate has already been transferred to the kids." His smug grin stretched so wide it nearly split his face. Then smack. The slap echoed through the banquet hall like a gunshot. My father had stormed forward and hit Billy so hard his head snapped sideways. "You bastard," Dad shouted. "She gave up everything for you. Her body, her life, her fortune, and this is how you thank her?" Billy turned red, not from pain, but from humiliation. He waved his hand. "Security, get this old man out of here." A group of guards moved in fast. The same men who had earlier helped my dad carry party supplies now turned on him like strangers. "Touch me and you'll regret it," Dad warned, his voice sharp. One of the guards scoffed. "Why wouldn't we? Who are you?" They hesitated. Then, Denise, delighted to play the villain, marched over and slapped my father across the face. He froze. This was a man who had once been president of the state, business council, a man respected by governors and CEOs. Now he'd been publicly humiliated by the woman stealing his legacy. He was about to explode, but I pulled him back before things spiraled further. "This is too much," someone whispered. "They even hit Mr. Oldford." "He's a great man," another muttered, "a philanthropist. He's helped rebuild homes, funded schools, supported veterans. How dare they?" The crowd was angry now. Voices rose, fingers pointed. Some cursed Billy. Some pitied me. But Billy remained unfazed. "Are we done yet?" he asked. The room went silent. "Right." He turned back to me. "So, Crystal, are you signing or not? We don't have all day." "Fine," I said coldly. "I'll sign." I picked up the pen and signed with quick, emotionless strokes. Billy snatched up the papers, scanned them, and let out a laugh. "Perfect. Thank you, Crystal. You just handed us $1 billion fortune. My family and I will enjoy your generosity for generations." Denise lifted her glass. "Seriously, Crystal, you're like my fairy godmother. I should toast to you every year." I smiled. Let's see how long that smile lasts. Then it happened. My father, still watching the betrayal unfold, suddenly coughed violently and collapsed, spitting blood. I screamed and rushed to his side. My mom cried out. Relatives surrounded him. Some tilted his head up. Others offered water. Someone pressed his pressure points. Chaos erupted. His heart had always been fragile. He nearly had a stroke when I had the hysterectomy. This might finish him. Billy just stood there watching. Then someone entered the hall, a tall man in a sharp navy suit. "Theo Jones." Billy scowled. "What the hell are you doing here? Don't tell me you're interested in Crystal now. She's not exactly the flavor of the month." Theo didn't respond. He just smiled politely and looked right past Billy. My father was helped into a quiet room. "Where are the twins?" someone asked. "Think they went to get their admission letters." Just then, the front doors opened, and in walked Chloe and Caleb in school uniforms. They ran straight to Billy. "Dad?" Chloe beamed. "Aunt Denise?" We did. "It!" We both got in. Billy hugged them proudly. "I knew you would. I'm so proud of you." Then he gently told them, "Kids, from now on, don't call Denise Aunt anymore. Call her Mom." Da, da. The twins lit up and shouted in unison, "Mom? Mom?" My heart sank. I had been the one who packed their lunches, stayed up through fevers, attended every school event, wiped their tears.
Ow.
Denise gave a glowing smile.
Ow.
"Now I don't have to sneak around like a criminal just to see you." My mother couldn't take it. Her voice cracked. "Chloe, Caleb, your mother is right here." She pointed to me. "She gave up 18 years of her life for you, and now you're calling the woman who destroyed our family Mom?" She turned to Caleb. "You were a sick baby. One night, your fever hit 104. She ran through a storm to get you to a doctor. Chloe, when bad kids drugged your drink in high school, your mom barged in to save you. She was stabbed 10 times protecting you. And when you got your first period, who sat with you and explained it so you wouldn't be scared?" Silence. The kids had no response because they knew it was true. Then Chloe rolled her eyes. "Whatever. Doesn't matter. She's not our real mom." Caleb sneered. "Look at her. You think she deserves to be our mom? Not a chance." Then he slammed down a folder. Paternity test. They were Denise's biological children. Gasps spread across the room. Even though the rumors had been circulating, it still shocked them. All eyes turned to me, pitying, mocking, waiting for me to snap. Instead, I calmly placed my own folder on the table. "Says that's how you feel," I said. "Let's cut ties here." More gasps. "You're just giving them up after everything?" someone whispered. Chloe laughed. "That's what I wanted." They signed without hesitation and walked over to Billy and Denise. The 4 of them smiled like they had just won the lottery. "Great," I said with a smile of my own. I gave them a chance. If they had even a shred of decency, I might have shown mercy. But human nature, it blinds people. Everyone wondered how I, a woman who built $1 billion empire, ended up raising someone else's children. This party has nothing to do with you anymore, Billy said. Leave and tell your parents to leave too. The mansion belongs to the kids now. It's not so fast, I said with a smile. This is still my kids' graduation party. Celebration hasn't even started. Why would I leave now? And I turned to the door. Kids, come on in. Everyone looked toward the entrance to more students in school uniforms walked in. The room fell into stunned silence as the 2 students in school uniforms stepped into the banquet hall. Every head turned toward them. They were the same age as Chloe and Caleb, yet their presence felt like a crack of thunder splitting through the storm that had just erupted. Their posture was poised, their expressions calm, but alert. They stood tall, composed, and for a moment, even Denise faltered in her confident stance. One of them, a boy with jet-black hair and gray eyes, scanned the crowd with a steely gaze before resting his attention on me. He gave a small nod. The other, a girl with auburn curls tied neatly into a braid and eyes that shimmered like honey in the light, smiled gently at my mother, then stepped forward. Sorry we're late, the boy said, his voice steady and clear. There was traffic. Billy squinted at them, confused. Who are you? The girl answered for both of them. I'm Ava. This is my brother Noah. Crystal is our legal guardian. Her children. Laughter erupted from Billy and Denise. You? Her children? Denise mocked. Nice try, but we already have that covered. You can't just parade in here and claim inheritance like some B-movie plot twist. I took a deep breath and walked over to the twins. I put an arm around each of them. These 2 aren't guests. They're mine. I adopted them 2 years ago. Quietly, legally. Billy blinked. What do you mean adopted? You said we would never have. Kids, you had surgery, you swore. I nodded. Yes, I did. You brought Chloe and Caleb into our lives. You convinced me to mother children who weren't mine. I did it willingly, fully. But after all the lies, the betrayal, I realized something. I had more love to give, more life to live. These 2 needed a home. I gave them one. Noah stepped forward, his hands in his pockets. Crystal saved us. We were in a shelter after our foster placement fell through. She didn't hesitate. She didn't ask for our stories. She just gave us a place to feel safe. Ava added softly. She never treated us like replacements, just like family. Gasps filled the room as my revelation sank. My parents, who had been sitting stunned since my father's collapse, both looked toward the twins and then back at me. My mother's lips trembled as a tear rolled down her cheek, but this time it wasn't out of grief. It was pride. Billy stammered. You never told me. This is insane. You don't just adopt 2 teenagers behind your husband's back? I don't owe you explanations anymore, I said coolly. You forfeited that right when you betrayed our marriage and our family. Denise scoffed, lifting her glass again. This is pathetic. You can parade these orphans all you want. The estate is signed over. The assets are already transferred. You lost. Maybe, I said calmly, but I still have something none of you will ever understand. Dignity and a backup plan. Billy paused, frowning. What backup plan? I turned to the guests. Everyone here knows the Oldford legacy. You know what it stands for? You know what we built over generations? My name, despite what Billy says, still means something. No. And as of last month, a new entity has been established. A trust, not under the Dawes name. Not under Oldford, but under a name built from scratch. Ava and Noah's surname, Carter. Denise nearly choked on her champagne. I continued. Every remaining business not under the Dawes umbrella. Every silent partner share I held. Every offshore holding has been transferred to the Carter Foundation and Educational Trust. A humanitarian fund, and yes, a business capital. Venture firm built for the next generation. One I choose. Noah pulled out a document from his blazer and walked over to the center table, placing it beside the divorce papers. For the record, he said, this was signed and notarized before this party ever started. Billy lunged toward the table, snatching the document. He read the first page, then the second. Slowly, the blood drained from his face. This is impossible, he muttered. It's not, I replied. You see, Billy, while you were busy sleeping with Denise, I was building something that didn't rely on your name, your approval, or your manipulation. You thought you were the one using me, but you never realized I had already stopped being. Yours a long time ago. Denise grabbed the paper from Billy's hands, reading over it rapidly. Her face contorted with rage. You've been planning this? She snapped. This was revenge. I shook my head. No, it was survival. Revenge is just a bonus. The guests erupted into murmurs again. This time the tone had shifted. The whispers weren't pitying, they were impressed. Did you know about this? Someone asked my father. He smiled faintly. Not the details. But I had a feeling. My daughter didn't build an empire by accident. Chloe and Caleb stood stunned. The first time all night, they looked unsure, confused. Wait, Chloe asked, her voice small. So we don't get anything? I looked at her gently. You got 18. Years of my love, my time, my everything. That's more than most people ever receive. But you threw it away. Caleb frowned. We're still your kids. No, I said calmly. You made your choice. I respected it. Now, I expect you to respect mine. Denise stepped forward, her tone desperate. You can't do this. The board, the shareholders, they'll revolt if they find. Out, I shrugged. They already know. I briefed them 2 weeks ago. Every one of them signed the resolution to transfer power because they believe in me. Not you, not Billy, me. Billy stepped back as if struck. His expression was hollow. Then what was all this for? The party? The theatrics? I looked around. The room, my eyes sweeping the guests, to say goodbye, to close this chapter, and to introduce the new one. Ava and Noah stood beside me, tall and steady. I reached for their hands. This is my family, I said, my voice steady, chosen, not inherited. And from now on, we move forward together. A hush swept the room, then a slow clap began from the back. Theo, he stepped forward, nodding respectfully. Now that is how you handle betrayal. Denise scowled. And what? You're just here to cheerlead. Theo looked at her without emotion. No, I'm here because I'm your new landlord. Denise blinked. What? You know that penthouse Billy moved into with you last month? The one you had? Remodeled with his so-called new earnings? I bought it last week. Cash Billy looked like he'd been punched. You're lying, he whispered. Theo smiled. Am I? He pulled out a slim document from his pocket and handed it to Billy. The deed notarized, signed, stamped. The air left Billy's lungs. He stumbled back into a chair. The weight of humiliation finally breaking through his facade. Denise opened, her mouth to protest, but Theo cut her off. Oh, before you try squatting, know this. I've already filed for repossession. You have 72 hours. The room broke into shocked gasps. Someone chuckled. Another clapped again, and slowly the applause grew. I turned toward Ava and Noah. You ready to go? I asked. They nodded. My parents gathered beside us. My mother took Noah's hand. My father, now steadier, gave Ava a nod of approval. As we began walking toward the exit, the music started again, almost like the party had hit reset. Behind us, the past crumbled. Ahead of us, the future waited. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had already reclaimed everything that mattered, and this time I was building it for me and for them. The ride home was unusually quiet. Theo had offered us his private car, and the driver moved smoothly through the streets. The tinted windows shielding us from the rest of the world. Ava sat beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, while Noah leaned against the window, his eyes tracking a blur of city lights as we drove past. My parents followed behind in their own car. I knew they needed space, my father especially. He had nearly collapsed in front of a crowd of hundreds, betrayed by the very man he once welcomed into our home like a son. Yet, even as my thoughts flickered back to the chaos of the banquet hall, I felt strangely calm. I had signed the divorce. I had lost 2 children I raised for 18 years, and I had dismantled every illusion of the family I once believed in. I felt free. You okay? Theo's voice was low, breaking the silence as he glanced at me from across the back seat. I nodded, better than I expected to be. He looked at Ava and Noah before returning his gaze to me. You handled that with more grace than most people would have. I didn't have a choice, I said. If I screamed or cried, they would have won. I gave Billy enough power over me for a lifetime. Tonight, I took it back. Ava finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Will Chloe and Caleb come back? I paused. I don't know, I said honestly. But if they do, it'll be because they want to. Not because I begged. Not because I gave them anything. They'll come back only if they remember what love used to look like. Noah shifted in his seat. You're still there, Mom, even if they pretend you're not. I reached over and placed a hand over his. They made their choice. Now it's time for us to build something better. When we arrived at the estate, the one Theo had helped me secure under a blind trust, I stepped out into the cool night air. The house was sleek, modern, and secluded. Everything inside had been redesigned to reflect a new beginning, stripped of old photos, old memories, old pain. Inside, my parents joined us. My mother immediately started fussing over Ava and Noah, insisting they eat something before bed while my father walked over to me slowly. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. I blinked, surprised. What for? For doubting you. For slapping you in front of everyone. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just scared. Scared I had failed as your father. I reached for his hand. You didn't fail me. You reminded me who I was. When I forgot, you were still there. He looked at me for a long moment, then pulled me into a tight hug. That night, after the house went quiet and Ava and Noah were asleep, I sat in the kitchen with Theo. He poured 2 glasses of red wine and slid one across the counter to me. You're going to need a plan, he said. I arched an eyebrow. Plan? Billy and Denise won't go quietly? You embarrassed them in front of half the city? You took back everything they thought was already theirs. They'll come after you, Crystal. One way or another, I took a sip of wine. Let them come. You really think they'll stop at public shaming? They'll hit back in court, through the media? Maybe even try to manipulate Ava and Noah? I nodded slowly. You know? That's why I've already begun transferring control of the Carter Foundation to a rotating board. Ava and Noah won't just inherit money. They'll inherit protection. Legal teams, strategic oversight. It's not just a trust fund, it's a fortress. Theo leaned back, impressed. You always were 10 steps ahead. I met his eyes. I used to be 10 steps behind. For Billy, I stayed small to keep him feeling big. I made myself quiet to let him be loud. But now I'm not playing that game anymore. He gave a small smile. And what about you? What about me? After all this, after everything you've lost? What do you want? I didn't answer immediately. I stared. Out the window, the moonlight spilling across the dark garden. I want to build something honest, I said. Not for revenge. Not to prove anything, just honest. Theo nodded. Then let me help. I looked at him. Why, what's in it for you? Maybe nothing. Or maybe I believe in second. Chances for you? For me? I considered his offer. I had known Theo for years. We'd grown up in the same small town. He had always been kind, patient, the opposite of Billy's arrogant fire. We had shared secrets once, almost something more. Life had pulled us in different directions. Now, we were meeting again in the aftermath of destruction. Maybe, just maybe, something was still there. I didn't answer, not yet, because I still had one final storm to weather. The next morning, I woke to a knock on the door. My mother opened it, her face pale. It's the media, she said. Outside the gates, a small army of reporters had assembled. Cameras, microphones, vans. The headlines had already started spreading online. Crystal Oldford, blindsides ex, with secret adoption. Oldford heiress builds new empire after family betrayal. Wife gives away billion-dollar fortune, only to reclaim it in public spectacle. And worst of all, twins reject mother who raised them. I walked to the gates alone, holding my head high. The reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Crystal, are you retaliating against your ex-husband? Did you always know the twins weren't yours? Are you planning to sue Billy Dawes? Why did you adopt 2 more children? Were you trying to replace them? I raised a hand. I'll say one thing, I said firmly. I was betrayed, but I am not broken. I raised Chloe and Caleb with love, and I have no regrets. But love given freely should never be repaid with cruelty. As for Billy and Denise, what they tried to take from me, I already gave up long ago, and what I've built now, no one can take. The reporters fell quiet, scribbling down every word. As I turned to walk back to the house, I noticed a familiar figure standing by the sidewalk. Chloe. She wasn't alone. Caleb stood beside her, looking sheepish. I stopped. You came, I said quietly. Chloe shrugged. We saw the news. Caleb avoided my gaze. People at school are saying all kinds of things. I waited. Chloe shifted uncomfortably. We thought maybe you exaggerated, but it's all real, isn't it? I didn't say anything. Chloe's voice cracked. You really don't want us anymore. I sighed. It was never about what I wanted. You made your choice. You chose Denise. You said things you can't unsay. We didn't mean it, Caleb said quickly. It was the heat of the moment. I held up a hand. Stop. I spent 18 years loving you, and you couldn't give me 5 minutes of loyalty. You saw me humiliated, heard Denise call me names, and you laughed. Chloe looked down. We didn't know she was that bad. Thought you were being dramatic. Maybe I was, I said. But I was never a liar. I never pretended to be someone else. Caleb finally met my eyes. What if we want to fix it? I took a deep breath. Then show me. Not with words, with actions. I nodded slowly, but I saw it. The hesitation, the guilt, and I knew this wasn't the end. The real test was coming. The Dawes wouldn't fade quietly, and neither would the children I once called mine. As I walked back inside, Theo met me at the door. They'll be back, he said. I nodded. Let them come, God. Because now I had nothing left to lose, and that made me more dangerous than ever. 3 days passed. 3 days since I signed away 18 years of my life. 3 days since the banquet hall turned into a courtroom. And my children know, their children now declared I was nothing to them. The headlines were still everywhere. The internet had crowned me, the billionaire mother betrayed, and the Carter Foundation's website crashed twice under the flood of support from strangers. Some called me a martyr, others a fool, but I didn't care about the noise. I cared about what came next, because Billy and Denise weren't celebrating anymore. They were unraveling, Crystal, Theo said as he stepped into my home office holding a folder. You're going to want to see this. I set down my coffee and took the folder. Inside were glossy photos and printed screenshots, headlines, court filings, leaked memos. I skimmed quickly. Denise tried to register the Dawes Group's new subsidiary under Carter Holdings. I asked, raising an eyebrow. Theo nodded. She used one of your old business names? Sloppy and illegal? I already forwarded the cease and desist letter. Good. What else? Chloe and Caleb have officially withdrawn from their early enrollment. They were supposed to be starting classes this week. My fingers froze over the folder. What do you mean withdrew? He handed me 2 letters, one from Princeton, one from Yale. Both read the same, application withdrawn by family request. I closed my eyes. They gave up Ivy League placements. Why? Theo hesitated. I think they thought they'd still have access to your resources. Without them, it turns out Billy can't afford the tuition or the lifestyle. I clenched my jaw. So, the golden image cracked faster than I expected. Not just cracked, Theo said. It's burning. He slid over a USB drive. I had someone look into Billy's finances. Turns out he leveraged the Dawes name to take out several loans weeks before the banquet. He promised returns based on access to old deferred assets. Now that those aren't in his control, the lenders want their money back. Fast. I smirked. and Denise. Fired. The board at your former company unanimously voted her out. Seems no one was impressed by the show she put on at the party. The investors pulled out the same night. Poetic, I muttered. But despite the satisfaction of watching their house of lies crumble, a part of me still felt hollow. It's not because they were suffering, but because I once believed in them. I pushed the folder aside and stared out the window. Then I remembered Ava and Noah. They were in the garden doing their morning routine, stretching, running drills. It had become a habit since I enrolled them in a leadership and entrepreneurship program. It's not just academic. It focused on discipline, resilience, integrity, things never learned. I walked outside and watched them. You two are really serious about this, I said, arms crossed. Noah grinned. You said you didn't raise heirs. You raised leaders. Ava smirked. Besides, we need to be ready. You've made enemies. I smiled. Faintly, you're not wrong. We sat on the grass under a shaded pergola. Birds chirped nearby. It was peaceful, honest, real. Then my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a text appeared. You're going to want to see this. Channel 7 right now. I pulled out my tablet and tuned in. There on live TV was Denise sitting on a velvet armchair, wiping away crocodile tears, flanked by a sympathetic reporter. I just don't understand how she could do that to us, Denise sniffled. Billy and I only ever wanted what was best for the kids, and now they've lost everything. No home, no school, no support. The reporter leaned in. You're saying Crystal Oldford abandoned them? Denise nodded, her face a mask of sorrow. She cut them off financially, left them with nothing, not even a place to sleep. Chloe's been crying every night. Caleb hasn't left the apartment. And Billy, he's devastated. I sat still. Theo's jaw clenched beside me. She's turning it into a pity parade. But I was already ahead. Let her talk, I said. Let her spin. It only makes a fall worse. The following day, Chloe showed up at the estate again. No press, no cameras, just her. She looked thinner, paler. Her eyes had dark circles. I'm sorry I came without calling, she said, arms crossed tightly. I said nothing. She swallowed. Denise made us say things. She said if we didn't go along, she'd tell Billy to cut us off. I tilted my head. She didn't force you to smile when I was humiliated. She didn't write the words you spoke. That was you. I know, she whispered. But I was scared. Caleb and I, we thought you'd never forgive us. I didn't answer. Can I see Ava and Noah? She asked softly. I considered it. They're not ready. Maybe one day. Chloe bit her lip. They're lucky. You really care about them. I cared about you too, I said. Love without respect is just pity, and I don't pity you. She nodded slowly, then left, and I didn't stop her. The next blow came quicker than expected. Billy filed an emergency motion in family court claiming emotional distress and unlawful transfer of assets. He was trying to reverse the foundation's control to claw back what I'd built. I showed up to court with my lawyers. Billy arrived alone. Denise didn't come. He looked exhausted, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled. The judge, a sharp woman with little patience, cut to the chase. Mr. Dawes, do you have proof these transfers were done without consent? Billy shifted. No, but she manipulated me. I thought she was signing over everything to our children. Not to these strangers. Are you referring to Ava and Noah Carter? The judge asked. Yes, she's giving everything to them. It's not fair. The judge raised an eyebrow. Were they legally adopted? Billy hesitated. Yes. Then they're her children. Your complaint is dismissed. He tried to protest, but she shut him down with a wave of her gavel. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I stepped in front of the microphones. Let me be clear, I said. This is not about money. It's about principle. For too long, women like me have been expected to give everything and accept betrayal and silence. I won't. Not now. Not ever again. The crowd applauded. Billy walked away with his head down. Didn't watch him go. Back at home, I found a letter waiting for me at the gate. No return address. Inside, a single sentence written in Chloe's handwriting. Mom, if you ever find it in your heart to forgive us, we'll be waiting. I folded the paper slowly. Maybe one day, but not today. Because redemption is earned. And paper thrones, they burned fast. 3 weeks after the court ruling, my name was everywhere. Not because of the divorce, not because of the betrayal, but because of what came next. People had seen me as the woman who gave everything and was left with nothing. But they were wrong. I was never left with nothing. I was left with clarity. And from clarity, I rebuilt everything. The Carter Foundation opened its first community center that we call Modern, solar-powered space that offered financial literacy courses, mentorship for at-risk teens, and business incubators for young women.
Bye.
Ava and Noah stood beside me as I cut the ribbon. Press cameras clicked non-stop. Behind us, a massive mural painted across the building read, "Legacy isn't inherited, it's earned." Reporters swarmed after the ceremony. "Crystal, do you have any message for your former family? Will Chloe and Caleb ever be welcomed back? Is it true Denise Bowl is now under investigation for fraud?" I answered none of those questions. Instead, I walked straight to the main lobby, where 5 teenage girls waited, holding folders filled with business pitches. They were the first recipients of the Carter Seed Grant. I sat with each one. I listened to every idea. I gave honest feedback. I shook every hand because this was the future I had chosen, and it looked nothing like the one I was tricked into before. That night, back at the estate, I found Ava and Noah in the kitchen, arguing about who got to use the espresso machine first. "Last time I let you go first, you nearly flooded the thing," Ava said. "That was a design flaw," Noah replied, smirking. "I improved the water flow." "You flooded the machine," she repeated. Flatly, I leaned against the doorway watching them. This laughter, this petty fight over caffeine, this sense of belonging, it was everything I never realized I needed. They stopped when they noticed me. "What's that look for?" Noah asked. "Just wondering," I said, "how I got lucky enough to be your mom." Ava rolled her eyes, but smiled. "We're the lucky ones." Could answer, the doorbell rang. Theo opened the front door before I even reached the hallway. A courier stood with a clipboard and a thick envelope. "Who's it from?" I asked as he handed it over. Theo's brow furrowed. "What?" "Law offices of Denning." "In row?" I opened it carefully. Inside was a notice. Billy Dawes and Denise Bowl were being sued, not by me, but by the board of my former company. Apparently, Denise had embezzled funds. Billy had funneled resources into a failed offshore investment. Without disclosure, combined, they had drained nearly $23 million, and now the board wanted it all back. Theo let out a low whistle. "They're going down hard." I nodded. "And this time, I won't have to lift a finger." "Do you feel vindicated?" he asked. I thought about that for a moment. "No," I said, "because revenge is loud, but peace, ... peace is quiet. And right now, I finally have peace." The next morning, I received another letter. This time, the handwriting was shaky but familiar. It was from Caleb. "Mom, I know I've said unforgivable things, and I don't expect you to open your heart again. But I want you to know, I remember. I remember the night I couldn't breathe and you sat with me for 5 hours. I remember when you read me The Hobbit 3 times in 1 week because I was scared to sleep. Denise doesn't even know my birthday. I don't know what I thought I'd gain by leaving you, but I know exactly what I lost. And it was never about money. It was about you. If you ever need anything from me, I'm here. Even if you never speak to me again, I love you. I always did. I just didn't know how to show it." I read it 3 times. My hands trembled slightly. I didn't cry. I just breathed.
What?
Later that week, my father invited me to a private club downtown. I hadn't seen him in person since the court day. When I arrived, he stood as I entered, a quiet smile on his face. My mother was there too, sipping tea as if we were just having lunch at the country club and not rebuilding a family brick by brick. He gestured for me to sit. "I wanted to apologize again," he said, "but I figured that was redundant. Instead, I wanted to tell you something I never said enough." He reached into his blazer and pulled out a worn photograph. Me, age 10, holding up a spelling bee trophy, my hair in a crooked braid. I always knew you were sharper than the rest, he said. But I didn't realize how strong you were until I saw you sign that divorce paper with your chin held high. I stared at the photo. You were furious with me. I was furious at myself, he corrected, for letting you think you had to shrink yourself to make space for a man like Billy. That's on me. But you made sure Ava and Noah would never have to do that. I nodded. They're not afraid to take up space. Good, he said. Then you did your job. The next firestorm came with no warning. A viral video leaked online. Chloe sobbing, talking to someone behind the camera. She lied to us, she said, her voice cracking. Denise said Mom was greedy, that she didn't care, but it was all a lie. Every time I wanted her gone, she stayed. Every time I pushed, she pulled me back in, until the day I pushed too far. The video spread like wildfire. Hashtag forgive Crystal, hashtag justice for Crystal, hashtag kids gone wrong. The comments were brutal. She raised you and you threw her away. Billy and Denise deserve prison. Hope Crystal never looks back. But I did look back, because healing isn't about winning. It's about choosing how much of yourself you're willing to keep after the storm. Oh, my night. I found myself outside my old home. The mansion Billy once called his own. It was dark now. For sale, foreclosure pending. A security guard leaned against the gate. He recognized me. You want to take one last look? He asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. No, I said. There's nothing in there for me anymore. I turned away. As I walked back to the car, I saw Ava and Noah waiting for me inside. I had found my home already, and it wasn't made of stone or wealth. It was made of truth, of resilience, of earned love. I later learned that Denise had fled the country, and Billy was now facing multiple lawsuits, including one from his own son Caleb, for fraud and emotional distress. The irony was too sharp to enjoy, but I didn't chase the ending because my story wasn't over. I had Ava, I had Noah, I had my name. I had finally burned every bridge that led me back to a life of pretending. The ashes still whispered, but the fire was mine now. 6 months had passed. The noise had died down. The headlines faded. The betrayal that once defined me was now just a whisper in the shadow of something louder, my rebirth. The Carter Foundation had opened its third center in Atlanta. Ava and Noah each led their own programs, Ava heading a tech mentorship initiative for girls in underserved communities. Noah launching a startup incubator for teen inventors. I no longer introduced them as my adopted children. I introduced them as my legacy, and people believed it because it was true. On a chilly October morning, I stood at the edge of the Oldford family vineyard. Leaves were turning gold and crimson. My father had insisted I come. He was waiting by the stone wall where we used to sit when I was little and tell him about spelling bees. Schoolyard drama and the dreams I wasn't sure I was allowed to dream. When I reached him, he handed me a letter. "What's this?" I asked. "It's from your grandfather," he said. Wrote it before he passed. Only recently found it tucked inside an old legal file. I opened it with steady fingers. Crystal, if you're reading this, something in the world broke. Perhaps someone betrayed you. Or maybe you betrayed yourself. Either way, I want you to remember one thing. You carry the Oldford name, but you are not bound to it. Names can carry power, but they can also carry weight. Be wise enough to know when to use one, and strong enough to walk away from it when it no longer fits who you've become. Whatever they try to take from you, your name, your ability to bear children, your trust, let them. The only thing they can't steal is your will to rebuild. Love, Granddad. My throat tightened. The letter and slipped it into my coat. Thank you, I whispered. My father didn't speak, but he placed a hand on my shoulder and squeezed it gently. For once, that was enough. A few days later, Chloe returned. No cameras, no performance, just her alone, waiting on the front steps of the estate. I opened the door. She stood there, visibly different, smaller, not physically, but in presence, like someone who had finally realized how much space they had taken for granted. "I got a job," she said. I nodded. "Good, retail. It's not glamorous, but I wanted to earn something for myself." I leaned on the doorway. "And Caleb, he's in therapy. He says hi." I waited. She held out a box. "These are the old photo albums. I took them when we moved in with Denise. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hold on to something. Even while I was trying to erase you, I took the box. It was heavy. Then she said it. I'm sorry. 2 words. So small, so late, but they still mattered. I'm not the same girl you raised, she added, voice shaking. But I want to be someone you could respect one day. I studied her. Her hands trembled slightly. Her lips quivered, and for the first time in so long, I saw a shadow of the child I once knew. Not the one who betrayed me, but the one who used to braid my hair and fall asleep on my shoulder during car rides. Come in, I said. She blinked. What? Come in. There's tea on the stove. And Ava would love a sparring partner in debate club. She smiled, the edges of it cracking with emotion. And just like that, she stepped inside. Not as my daughter, not yet, but as someone who finally understood what love had cost. Weeks later, I sat at the annual Carter Foundation Gala. It had sold out in under 4 hours. Celebrities, CEOs, and senators mingled over hors d'oeuvres, all wanting a piece of what we built. But I wasn't interested in handshakes or praise. I was watching Ava deliver her keynote speech. She stood on stage in a crisp navy suit, posture firm, eyes bright with conviction. I stand here not because someone gave me a chance, she said, but because someone taught me that I didn't need to wait for one. The crowd erupted in applause. I glanced over at Theo. He was seated beside me, looking proud but quiet, just the way I liked him. You ready to expand into international programs? He asked. I smiled. Only if you're ready to help me run them. He leaned back. Crystal Carter International has a nice ring to it. It does, I said. But I think I'd prefer just Carter. Ava and Noah grinned from the stage as the lights dimmed and the celebration began. Back at home that night, I sat by the fireplace. The house was quiet. Ava and Noah were still out celebrating with their teams. My parents had gone back to the vineyard. Chloe had called earlier just to say goodnight. I sat with the old photo album Chloe had returned. Inside were years of memories I had once been willing to forget. But I didn't want to forget anymore. Because forgetting meant pretending it never happened. And I wasn't pretending anymore. I closed the album and set it aside. Then I picked up a blank, leather-bound journal. On the first page I wrote, "This is what I chose to keep." I listed names, not the ones who betrayed me, but the ones who stayed. The ones who came when I called or didn't need to be called at all. The ones who saw me, not as a bank account, not as a stepping stone, but as me. Then I wrote one more name, Crystal, because that's all I ever needed to be. Not Dawes, not Oldford, just Crystal. Strong, rebuilt, unapologetically myself.